guys, it's Emily. I'm here today and I'm going to talk about homeschooling. So out of the list of different topics, it was hard to choose, but I decided to go with homeschooling because of a few reasons. I was actually homeschooled, so that's one reason, and I would love to see, more information and more, general public education about homeschooling. So that's the first reason. Second reason would be I do probably plan to homeschool my own kids for at least a portion of their educational careers. And then thirdly, I am a Christian, and I believe that, God does instruct parents to teach their children their worldview and their values, and I think that's very, very important. So those are the three reasons that I've decided to talk about the two articles that I chose. And I chose these from the Bluford Library. And so I found a couple of really interesting ones, and it was really hard to choose. So I just decided to talk about both. The first one that I want to talk about is called Revisiting the Common Myths About Homeschooling. And this is from the Clearinghouse Publishment. And the author is Michael Romanowski. So he goes through the article and he talks about, I believe it's 5 different myths about homeschooling. And I found most of these pretty relevant to my own personal experience with homeschooling. So we'll go through them really quickly. So the first myth about homeschooling that he reviews is that homeschooling produces social misfits or social awkwardness. And I found this to be not accurate. As he goes on to explain, he says that, homeschooled children are not necessarily less socialized than public school children. And I totally agree with that. I think that's 100% true. So we did a lot of extracurricular things with my family, and that's my experience. And socialization can also mean different things to different people. And so that was the first myth he talks about. The second myth he talks about is that homeschooling, fails to prepare good citizens. And then he explains why that's not true and how homeschoolers are actually more involved than, the general population of America in civic life. So he talks about community service and different things where homeschoolers really excel. Third myth would be that students who are homeschooled have difficulty entering college. And then he goes on to explain how many schools accept homeschool students and they excel in college. And I personally had no trouble at all getting into college, and so I found that this myth was not true also, as he explains. Fourth myth would be that most people homeschool only for religious reasons. Now, I'm not sure if I totally agree that this is a myth. I feel like most people do have some sort of worldview or religious reason to homeschool their kids. But he goes on to say that, a lot of people have different reasons, like children with, special needs, or they find the classroom too confining for them, etc. And I guess this is true, and especially in the time of the pandemic, we also have that factoring in also in these times. And then the last myth is that, let's see, actually I think there were only 4 myths. I'm sorry, I thought there were 5. Okay, and then we'll move on to the other article. The other article is called The Case for Christian Education. And it talks about how Scripture and the Church Fathers clearly state that education should be God-centered, but God is banned from public schools. So basically, the gist of the article, it talks about why Christians should consider, Christian school or homeschooling. It talks about the purpose of education from a Christian perspective, how historically the church or even, non-religious people have taken it upon themselves to educate their children personally. And I think that's really, really important. I think it's very important that we do pass on our worldview and our values to our children. And as a Christian, I do believe this is really, really important for my family. Then it goes on to talk about teaching children faith and virtue and knowledge. And I think all of those things are very important. And then finally, it talks about what the Bible has to say about education, which is basically that, we're to teach our children, we have the responsibility to pass on, our values to our children. So I really enjoyed this article too, and I will link both of these and cite them in my description. So if you have any comments, questions, anything, go ahead and comment, and we will talk soon. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.